Howdy guys, welcome back to BIG Photography. This is Ben, and a while back I made a video covering the basics of using layers and masks in Affinity Photo, and I got a lot of positive feedback on that video, so I thought I would make a follow-up showing you some more cool things you can do with layers and masks. Now in this video, I'm mainly going to be talking about layers, but at some point, hopefully soon, I will make another video where I talk about all the cool things you can do with masks. But for this video, we're going to be focusing on some of the interesting things you can do with layers in Affinity Photo. So with all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Alright guys, welcome back. So if you haven't already seen that video I referenced to at the intro, please do go check it out because it'll help you understand the basics of how layers work, and it'll make it easier for you to follow along with what I'm doing. Okay, so with all that out the way, let's just go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. So I already have a few layers set up. You can see I have this layer with a picture of Tokyo on it. And then above that, I have a little layer of just some little graffiti stuff I did with my BRG. Now, just like I mentioned in that previous video, the order of your layers is very important. So above that, I have a star, a shape layer that has a star with it. And you can see I can move it around. And you can see right now that it is above my BRG because it's covering it up. And you can see here in the layer stack, it is above this BRG paint. Now, if I wanted to change the order, if I wanted to have the star behind that text, I could simply take the layer, click and drag it below the BRG paint until I see this thin blue line and release it. And now that star layer is behind my name, and it's also below the BRG in the stack order. So this is very important. This is the first thing we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back. So I have this star layer here. Let's move it out the way so you can see my name. I have this other layer, was this portrait that I brought in here that I did. And above that, I have one more layer. I have a black and white adjustment layer. And so currently this black and white adjustment layer is affecting everything below it, right? You can see she's in black and white, the city's in black and white, the star's in black and white. Everything is being affected below that adjustment layer. Now, what if I just wanted the adjustment layer to only affect the city? Well, that's pretty easy because we can take that layer, click and drag it so that it is below the BRG paint, but above the city. And when I release it, you can see that now, let's go ahead and turn her off. You can see that now that black and white layer is just affecting the city and it's not affecting the star or the BRG paint. That's because it is below that. And so it's not having any effect on it. All right, pretty simple stuff, right? Okay, so here's a question then. What if I want this black and white layer to only affect this model portrait? Well, you know that if I put it on top of her or on everything, it's going to affect her and everything below it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is clipping layers inside of other layers. And so we can do that by simply taking this black and white adjustment layer, click and drag it, and we're going to drag it directly on top of this model layer I have here. And when I let go, this black and white adjustment layer has what they call been clipped or nested into this model layer. And what this does, and this is Affinity Photo's lingo for it, is it creates a parent-child relationship. The black and white layer has become a child layer of the model layer. So what's basically happening is we are basically putting that black and white adjustment layer inside that model layer so that it's only affecting that layer. I can still click on this model layer and I can still move it around. I can still change its shape and I can still double click on that black and white layer to bring up the adjustments so I can still make adjustments to the black and white adjustment layer like so. But it is not affecting anything else. So this is really convenient when you want to have especially adjustment layers affect only one part of your image or specifically one layer at a time. And the cool thing is I guess just like in real life, parents can have as many children as they want. You can have as many child layers in that parent layer. So if I have this black and white adjustment layer selected, let's say I wanted to add some more contrast. So I'm going to go ahead down here to the adjustments and let's go ahead and do a curves adjustment layer. Hey guys, just jumping in here real quick because I forgot to mention something. If you're wondering why that curves adjustment layer that I created automatically became a child layer, that was because I had this black and white adjustment child layer selected when I created it. By default, when you create an adjustment layer, it will automatically put it above the layer you currently have selected. And because I had this black and white child layer selected, when I created this curves adjustment layer, it put it above that child layer, thus also making it a child layer. If I delete this curves adjustment, and if I had the parent layer selected, when I create that adjustment layer, it will create it above the parent layer, thus not becoming a child layer. And then of course I could click that adjustment layer and drag it onto her layer, and then it will become a child layer. And let's just do a kind of a classic S curve here. We're gonna make the highlights a bit brighter and make some of the shadows a bit darker. And let's just go kind of really extreme just for this example here. And so you can see that this curves adjustment layer is still only affecting her because it is a child layer of this parent layer. Now, if I were to take that curves adjustment layer, click and drag it out, now you can see that it is affecting her as well as everything below it. But if I just want it to affect her, I would click and drag it into there. Now there are a few other ways you can do this. Let me go ahead and just drag it back out. If you have this layer selected and you go over to arrange, there's options called move inside and move outside. If I click move inside, what it's going to do is going to move it inside to the layer that's below it. If I have that layer selected and I want to move it out, I can just say move outside and it'll now take it outside of that layer. But to be honest, I just find it easier just to click and drag it where I want it to go. So let's go ahead and click and drag it back in here. Now, just like with the way layers work in general, the layer order inside these child layers is also very important. So right now I have a curves adjustment and a black and white adjustment layer. Now, if I change the order, we're not going to see too much of a difference just because these layers do. But let me go ahead and add another adjustment layer. Let's do a recolor. And this is going to allow me, let's go ahead and put this at the very top. This is going to allow me to kind of change the color of our image. Let's go ahead and do like a cool desaturated blue or something like that. All right, and so you can see what's happening here. I'm going to go ahead and turn these off. Is first we have this curves layer happening. And then on top of that, we have the black and white layer, which is affecting that curve adjustment, as you can see there. And then above that, we have the recolor adjustment, which is affecting everything below it. But if I change the order, for example, if I drag this recolor adjustment down to the bottom of the child layer stack, remember, we don't want to go outside of the parent layer. We want to stay inside. And you'll see this kind of blue line that just doesn't go fully to the left edge. But if I put that at the bottom, now what's happening is first we have this recolor where everything turns blue. Then on top of that, we have this curves adjustment layer, which is adding lots of contrast. And then on the very top of that, we have a black and white adjustment layer, which is affecting everything, thus turning everything black and white. So the layer order is always important, whether it's outside the child layer or inside the child layer. Or sorry, the parent layer, if it's on the outside of the parent layer or the inside of the parent layer. All right, cool. Hope that makes pretty clear. Pretty simple stuff, I think. All right, let me go ahead and delete these. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and keep that black and white adjustment layer. I'm going to move it outside. I'm going to turn the visibility off. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this curves and delete this recolor. Let's just make her a little bit smaller for now. And let's go ahead and show you some more things you can do with clipping layers inside of other layers. So when we moved this black and white adjustment layer and we clipped it inside the model layer, you know, I said we're basically putting that layer inside that layer with her, thus it's only affecting her. So the cool thing is you can do that, of course, with any other kind of layers. So let me go ahead and just turn off this black and white layer for now. Let's take this star. Let me clip this star into her layer and see what happens. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just move it over a little bit. Now, right now the star is behind her. Let's go ahead and put it above her like that. All right, now let's clip that star into her picture or into her layer and see what happens. If I do the same thing where I get this big solid blue bar, now you can see the star is just like I said before, it's inside the photo with her, or it's inside her layer, which means that I can still move this star around, but I can't move it outside the confines of the photo of her because it's in her layer. And right now, her layer is just composed of, let me go ahead and see if I can isolate just her by herself. So you can see this layer is just her. Actually, the black and white arrow is on. This layer is just this photo here. So this is the borders of her layer. And when we have this star clipped inside of her, this star, oops, let's make sure we click on the star. The star is clipped inside the layer with her. Now you notice that when I click on the parent layer and move it around, the star moves with her. If I change her shape, the star changes shape as well. If I rotate or do things like that, the star is locked to her. Currently right now, the star is just kind of following wherever the parent goes. But if you want the star to stay in place, when you have that parent layer selected, you can come up here. There's an option called Lock Children. And if you click on that, now when I move that parent around, the child layer stays locked in its position. So it stays where it's at. So that's an option that, depending on what you want to do, might be very useful. And if I want to, again, take it out, I would just click on that star and drag it out. And so now that star is back on its own and it can freely move outside her layer and go wherever she wants. Now, what if we go the other way? What if we clip her into the star? That'll actually give us a more interesting result. So if I take her layer and I clip it into the star, now right now it's kind of off the side, we can't see it, but if I go ahead and open up this star and I click on the model and I bring it in, now we can see that she is clipped inside of the star, and I can make this star a bit bigger. And you know what, let's go ahead and lock her in. So over here, I'm going to click on Lock Children so I can make the star bigger without affecting the size of her image. And then I can move the star around, and maybe when I find a position that I like, and you're seeing this purple on the sides because this is, remember, this was the original color of the star, but now we're moving into where she's kind of clipped into it. And if I go ahead and click this off, now when I move the star, it moves along and scales accordingly. So that can give you some really cool effects if you want to put pictures inside certain objects, or you could even do something like this. Let's go ahead and take her out right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn that city back on, and let's bring that BRG paint back in. And so for example, let's go ahead and turn that star off. I could clip her into that BRG paint layer. And when I do that, you're going to see it's a bit difficult to see, but let me go ahead and turn the city off. It might be easier to see. You can see that, and right now it looks like it's hidden. It's not hidden because the text is white and the background's white. Let me go ahead and go to Layer, New Fill Layer, and it's going to give me a fill layer of a solid color, and I can change that color to any color I want, but this is a fine kind of a dark blue or something. Okay, it makes it easier for the text to be seen. And so now you can see that this model layer, she is clipped into the BRG. She's kind of trapped in the confines of that. And so that can give you some really cool effects if you wanted to do, I don't know, you could do a lot of really cool and interesting things with this. And yeah, pretty neat, right? And if I went the other way, let me go ahead and drag her out. And if I drag the BRG paint and I clip it to her, not as interesting, but it basically, as you can see, it kind of traps that BRG paint layer in the confines of her layer. And it allows you just to do all kind of really cool things like that. So that is clipping, where you can clip other layers into other layers. And just like with the black and white adjustment layer, I can take this star, for example, and I can clip it in there as well. Let's turn it back on. And you can see the star is clipped in there and it's behind the BRG paint, but I can put the BRG paint above the star and I can do like that. And if I wanted to get kind of crazier, I think I should be able to take this star and clip the star into BRG paint. And so the star is clipped inside this BRG paint and the whole BRG paint is clipped inside of her. or in this parent layer, and then she can move around freely as she likes. Pretty neat, right? Alrighty, let's go ahead and take all these out and we can move on to the next part. So the next thing we're going to look at is masking layers down to other layers. So one question I've asked before, and this is actually a question I thought about for a while, is how do you crop a picture inside your picture? So let's say, for example, let's turn the star off. Let's turn BRG off. Let's say I have this picture of this model here, and let's say I want to crop it where I only want to see, let's say I don't want to see the jeans. I just want to see just below the shirt, right? Okay, well, we can't use the crop tool because if I go over to the crop tool will crop the whole image. It affects the entire image, so we don't want to do that. So what's the best way to crop an image inside an image? Now, I don't know if there's a more official way to do this, but I think the easiest way is to use a clipping mask to create a kind of crop for that image. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go ahead and do a quick review about what masks are. Again, if you please watch that other video I talked about because I go into a lot more depth. But basically a mask is something where you can determine what parts of the image you want to see and what parts of the image you don't want to see. So with this model layer selected, if I come down here and create a new mask by adding mask layer, we can see here we have this mask. And right now, if I show just the mask, I'm going to hold down Option on my keyboard and click on the mask. The mask is completely white, which means that it is revealing everything on that layer, which means that it's revealing her picture entirely. Now, if I were to click on that mask and grab a paintbrush, and let's go ahead and paint with black, because with a mask, black hides and white reveals. So if I go ahead and grab a paintbrush here, and let me just make this a little bit bigger, and I start painting with black on that mask, you can see what happens is it is now hiding those areas of the image. If I show you what that mask looks like by holding down Option and clicking on this mask, this is what the mask looks like. Everything that is white is being revealed and everything that is black is being hidden. And when something is hidden with a mask, it's going to show what is beneath. It's kind of making it transparent in a sense. So as you can see, where I painted that black on that mask, it is hiding that part of the image from us and it's showing the image underneath, right? And if I want to bring it back, all I have to do is switch and paint with white. Now, if I start painting white on that mask, you're going to see it's now bringing everything back, right? Pretty simple. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to crop this image. Now, knowing what we know about masks, I could take a black paintbrush and maybe I could just click down here, hold down Shift to make a straight line or to make the line between these 2 points, click on there, and I could do kind of a temporary kind of crop like that and try to get it looking as nice as I want. Or if I went too far, I could switch over to a white color and try to paint some areas back in. But I feel that's a little bit cumbersome. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use a shape to make a clipping mask for this. So let me go ahead and delete this mask. And this time, let's go ahead and use the shape tool over here. And let's just go ahead and grab a rectangle tool. And I'm going to make a rectangle shape here. And it doesn't matter what color it is or how big it is, but just to make it easier to see, I'm going to change this color to just a bright color here, just to make it noticeable, like a pink, something like that. Okay. All right, so now that we have this pink rectangle here, again, the color doesn't matter. The shape doesn't really matter because we're going to change it later. And so what I'm going to do is that rectangle now is I'm going to turn it into a clipping mask for her layer. So instead of putting it and dragging it over the entire layer here, we're going to drag it over the thumbnail. And you should see a little blue box go around the thumbnail to know that you're doing it correctly. When I release that, what you're going to see is, let's go ahead and select that rectangle inside, and with my move tool selected, that rectangle has become a mask for her layer. So as you can see here, if I move this rectangle off to the side, it's kind of represented here in this thumbnail, how the white area is what's being revealed to us and the black area is being hidden. Now, when you look at the mask by itself here, it doesn't actually show you the mask. It just shows you the original shape. But we know that whatever is inside this shape is being shown to us, and whatever is not inside that shape is being hidden from us, right? And so this is a really great way to kind of crop an image inside your image. Because this is a shape, I can still change the shape of that shape, I can, rotate it. I can do all the things you can do normally with a shape layer, but this allows me a lot more precise control to kind of create an interesting crop. So if I just wanted to not see the jeans down there, I can maybe crop it to something like that. And now if I click on her, I can now move that around freely, and I can still at any time take that rectangle and move it around and change the crop. Maybe I want to do something like this. And now I have that kind of cool crop, which now I can do like this. And you still have the same options to lock children when I have that parent layer selected. Even though this is a clipping mask, I still have the ability to move her around inside that square that I made. So lots of really cool things you can do with that. And just like before, let's go ahead and take this out. Let's go ahead and hide this pink rectangle. You can do it with more complex shapes. If I were to, let's move it over like this. If I were to take this star, and when you're clicking and dragging, as far as when you're moving something into something, it doesn't matter if you grab it from the thumbnail or you grab it from here, it does the exact same thing. You can grab it and drag it into her thumbnail, and you'll see that this shape star has become a mask. And it's a little bit different. I mean, it does look similar to what we were doing before, but the difference is, if you could pay attention, is that this one doesn't have any of the star's borders around it, because just the shape has become the mask and it doesn't retain any of the color information or any kind of other data that was in there. It's just basically the shape, right? If I take that star out and I move her into the star, you can see the star still kept its kind of blue shape. And if I move her around inside the star, you can see the purple is still back there. But when we use this star shape, when we use this star shape to clip in or make a clipping mask into her thumbnail, the fact the star was purple and it had a blue outline has no relevance. It's just using the overall shape of that to create a mask. And then of course, just like before, we can kind of reposition this mask to make something cool. And this is a star shape. And with the star shape specifically, there's a few cool options. I can change how many points I want this star to have. I can change the inner radius, the inner circle. I can do all kind of really cool things to kind of make this mask look really cool. And so that is clipping masks. So that's a great way to kind of crop an image inside an image, or to isolate an image in one specific area. The kind of possibilities are, I guess, endless as far as your creativity goes. All right, guys, let me jump in here one last time before I end the video to mention something I forgot. So when you are working with adjustment layers, like this black and white adjustment layer here, it doesn't make a difference whether you clip it into the layer or you clip it into the thumbnail. They will both operate and do the exact same thing. So here, this black and white adjustment layer is a clipping mask of this layer. But if I just move it onto the layer, it operates exactly the same way. You will notice that clipping masks have a little bit of a darker color. So for example, if this is a clipping mask, and then let's say I just bring the star to clip into her image, yeah, you can see that the clipping mask, the black and white, is affecting everything. I can still move this star around. And you'll notice the star layer is a little bit of a lighter gray and the clipping mask is a little bit of a darker gray. And you'll have this thin gray line separating the two. If I were to take this star and move it above the black and white layer, it would turn it into a clipping mask. And you'll notice that you'll notice the icon has become a mask because now this has been turned into a clipping mask. If I undo that and go the other way, take this black and white adjustment clipping mask and drag it below the star, now it has just turned into a normal clipping layer, which I then of course can change the order like we were previously talking about. So just be aware of that when you are working with adjustment layers, it doesn't matter if you put it here or if you put it here, but Affinity Photo will treat it a little bit differently depending on what you do. All right, so those are just two really interesting things you can do with layers, clipping layers into other layers or using other layers to kind of create clipping masks for other layers. Now, there are still plenty of things you can do with layers inside of Affinity Photo. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here because I feel like it's gonna go on too long, but I do hope to make videos covering some of those other topics in the future. And I guess that's going to be it, guys. As always, I really appreciate the comments you guys leave. It inspires me and motivates me to continue to make more videos for you guys. So I guess until then, I will see you at the next video. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.